Russian President Vladimir Putin is again defying the West and trying to justify his invasion of Ukraine. Putin spoke today at a massive military parade in Red Square, marking the 77th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. The Russian leader called the invasion of Ukraine a preemptive response to aggression and the correct decision. But he did not declare a shift in strategy or military expansion, as some analysts feared. Still, Russia is intensifying its assault on eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian officials say more than 60 people are feared dead in the region after a Russian bomb hit a school that civilians were using as a shelter. Now President Biden and other G7 leaders are pledging new measures to limit Russian oil imports. And in his address, Vladimir Putin accused America, NATO, and Kyiv of provoking the war. But with so many troops tied up in Ukraine, this was a smaller parade than usual. And the traditional fly past of fighter jets was canceled, apparently due to bad weather. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge joins me live from Kyiv for more on this. Tom, Ukraine's defense ministry claims at least 12 top Russian generals have been killed since the invasion started. And the UK Defense Ministry says as much as a quarter of Russia's ground forces in Ukraine have been eliminated. So how can Vladimir Putin sell this as a success to the Russian people?
Diane, it's a great question. You know, the Russians are clearly being pushed back from villages, for example, up in the northeast of the country, round the second biggest city of Ukraine, Kharkiv. In the words of the Pentagon, their key offensive in the Donbass in the east of the country, a territory roughly the size of West Virginia, which the Russians currently hold about half of that has stalled, in the words of the Pentagon. And then you look at the failures around Kiev. The Russians had to retreat. Think about Mariupol. They've been sieging that city, the Russians, for a month. The civilians are out of that steel plant. But as far as we're aware, there are still Ukrainian troops inside resisting.
Expected Putin to formally declare war on Ukraine or even declare victory over Ukraine in his address. He didn't do either. How is the U.S. responding to that?
Well, this morning we met the acting U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, right in the heart of Kiev. She's back in the country for the first time since the war began, Christina Kavin. And this is her reaction to that speech which she watched this morning.
I heard nothing new. What I heard was a bunch of excuses and justifications for what is an unjustifiable action by him, which is to invade a peaceful neighboring country for no reason. And all of those justifications that he spouts all the time, and in today's Victory in Europe Day for Russia, is just false. It's all lies. And the only people, unfortunately, that believe the lies are Russians, because they have no other access to information. But the rest of the world doesn't believe it.
That was the acting U.S. ambassador here in Ukraine reacting, of course, to that speech by Vladimir Putin, celebrating Victory Day, which, of course, traditionally is about celebrating the victory of the Soviet forces over Nazi Germany. Today, Vladimir Putin trying to link the Second World War to the conflict here in Ukraine, the U.S. and its allies rejecting that.
Yeah, and I know Ukrainian leaders, including President Zelensky, are now saying they'll have a new Victory Day to celebrate soon. But in the meantime, the U.S. and its allies are imposing a new round of sanctions on Russia. What impact could that have?
Yeah, look, sanctions have a variety of impacts, not only in the Russian economy, but also in the Russian military. They're not perfect. There are always loopholes. Let's take, for example, Russian-made military equipment. For example, there are Russian military aircraft which use US-made components. Now, the sanctions will stop those kind of components getting into Russia. But there are ways that Russia can get those components indirectly. So in that instance, the challenge for the West and the United States and its allies is really to close those channels down. That's just one example. Sanctions are having an impact. And the other key area, I think, is oil and gas. Like Europe, in particular Germany, is massively dependent on Russian gas. They say they're really going to produce more of their gas, source more of their gas in other ways. That's going to take time. So the sanctions are having an impact, but they won't be immediate.
So what can Russia do? Do they have a response if that goes forward?
Well, you know, Russia has demanded to European countries that they pay for their gas, for example, in rubles. The European nations have rejected that. So, you know, the West is taking a variety of measures against Russia in terms of the supply of gas and oil, but it's a key area. Russia does hold a trump card there. There's no doubt about it. It's funding this war. The Ukrainians have expressed their discomfort, their anger, really, at the Europeans to some extent, who are supplying all the weaponry, who are supporting them diplomatically. But oil and gas is that sticking point, particularly gas. And I think it's going to take a long period of time until there is a position which European nations and Ukraine are happy about. And not all European nations are on completely the same page. You take Hungary, for example, Viktor Orban, the leader there. He, at times, has been cozy, friendly with Vladimir Putin. He's not speaking the same language as leaders in other European nations.
And rock stars Bono and The Edge from U2 played a surprise concert in Kyiv's central metro station last night. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, small crowd there, but lovely atmosphere. Another gesture from someone from the West, and this time not a political leader, but a rock star. And, you know, you've got to remember, people in this country have been living underground since the beginning of the war. In Kharkiv, for example, the second biggest city, which I know, they've been living in the subway. So to be in the subway here in Kiev is a poignant moment, is another gesture of support for Ukraine.
All right, foreign correspondent Tom Sufi Burridge. Tom, thank you. Stay safe.